It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Dr. Justin Bhullar, who earned his DMD degree in 2010. He realized there was only one way to get 5 years experience in 2.5 years, so he started working 70 hours a week. After a while, that wasn't necessary anymore, and he now practices only 2 days per month, focusing mainly on implants, wisdom teeth, and IV sedation. He has completed 5 dental office acquisitions, 4 startups, and has helped multiple dental colleagues acquire, transition from, or start practices of their own. Currently, he owns and operates 6 7-figure dental practices, all with high profit, negligible team turnover, and thousands of happy patients. He is known to be straight up and transparent about what it really takes to succeed in this competitive and ever-changing dental marketplace. The path to success in business and practice ownership is never a straight line. He has encountered every failure you can imagine in pursuit of his goals, everything from major financial losses to poor health to suffering relationships, but ultimately created financial freedom and is more fulfilled now than ever before. He attributes his success to many things, but reframing failure as an opportunity to learn and grow, coupled with sheer persistence, were huge components. Be prepared for roadblocks, detours, and the occasional bridge collapse along the way. He says if you plan to succeed, you must be prepared for failure. Learn from those failures, course correct, and move on quickly without loss of momentum. He is a speaker and loves to inspire, engage, and share knowledge with others. He believes leadership, a bulletproof mindset, great habits, and consistent execution are the keys to attaining your personal and professional goals. Dr. Justin has invested over $1.5 million in his personal and professional development, as well as had the privilege of receiving mentorship from numerous millionaires and 2 billionaires in his short career. He believes the fastest way to 10x your results and grow your business is the model of the success of those that have already done it. He has been married to his beautiful, talented, and loving wife, Dr. Nav Bhullar, for 12 years. Dr. Justin and his wife and their 3 children currently live outside of Tampa, Florida, and manage their 6 dental offices from 2,000 miles away. He is author of The High Performance Practice, Management, Marketing, and Leadership, and a contributing author of Greatness 2018, a book he wrote with ABC's secret millionaire James Malinchak and other successful entrepreneurs. He is the co-host of the High Performance Practice podcast, where they talk about everything from leadership, mindset, relationships, wealth creation, and the drives of practice business growth. Dr. Justin is also founder and lead coach of High Performance Practice, a dental coaching organization that helps dentists go from where they are to where they want to be in the practice and life. In addition, he is the co-founder of dentalbusinessmentor.com, a premier online training platform for dentists by dentists. His wish for you is to have the freedom to be in places with people and do work that brings you joy. It is just an honor to have you be on the show. And I just want to start with your book, which you can buy, which is available on Amazon. And there's, there's 10 chapters of this book. I'm afraid if you don't want to answer these questions because then they won't read the book. But I'm going to start with chapter 1.
Sure.
Chapter 1, controversy, practicality, and experience. Why did you name chapter 1 controversy, practicality, and experience? And what does that mean to you?
Sure. Well, first of all, Howard, I want to thank you for having me here, and I'm always really excited to deliver some value to dentists, and this is a great opportunity and platform to do that. I want to thank you for everything you're doing for the dental profession. So,
I knew it'd be a hit for my show if I had Dentistry's very own Bhullar. I mean, I would change your name from Bhullar to Baller, because when you hang out with kids in their 20s. They want to be a baller when they grow up. So should dentists want to be a Justin Baller Bhullar?
Justin Baller. Yeah, let's do that. I'm going to legally change my name. Let's do that. I'll get started on that right away.
So controversy, practicality, and experience. Why is that chapter 1, and what does it mean?
Okay, well, I mean, without diving into too much detail, really, I think in any industry, you have a lot of information floating out there, and you really have to be able to sift through it. So one of the things is experience helps you sift through, and mentors help you sift through. And there's a lot of ideas and concepts and strategies floating out there that maybe aren't based on a lot of facts. As well, we do have certain debates that are ongoing in dentistry, anything from fee-for-service to the PPO debate to corporate dentistries, the public enemy number 1, et cetera. And I really wanted to just address some of these things. Some of the other issues we talk about are things about general dentists doing specialty type procedures, and talk a little bit about the specialists with an abundant mindset and those that don't operate with fear and scarcity and really support the general practitioner. Some of the most successful specialist friends that I have. We also go down certain myths about practice success and failure, what really works and what doesn't, and just get down to the crux of some of these things. I'm a real big fan of diving deep into, hey, here's some information we have, what are the facts, what's root cause, what's the right strategy, and how can we share these strategies, ideas, and concepts to help shed some light on things that perhaps people aren't talking enough about.
So what is dental public enemy number one? If you just graduated from dental school 2 months ago with $285,000 in debt, what is public enemy number one?
Yeah, so I don't necessarily think there is one big thing. I think there's a number of small little things that may determine whether or not we succeed or fail in a particular area. Now, if I were to boil it down to one thing, I'm not sure how much the guests are reading certain books and whether they've read Extreme Ownership or things like Obstacle is the Way or books like this. But one of the things I always look at is usually the biggest issue is you. So, and oftentimes when we're not where we want to be, it's generally if you're honest and if you have the strength of character to say, hey, this really is me. It's a me problem. I'm not where I want to be because. And we spend less time with a victim mindset, looking outwards and, blaming it on our team or corporate dentistry or the fact that someone is marketing up the road, and et cetera, et cetera. And we just kind of look within and start with the right mindset. I think if we could do that and then collaborate together as dentists as a whole, just coming together versus colluding, I think it's just a huge, huge benefit. So to me, I would say the number one threat to not just dentistry, any industry is really, one is the folks kind of getting in their own way. And two is a lack of collaboration. I think collective intelligence and sharing intellectual property is the future. I mean, if we're not doing this, and we're not supporting one another in this way, you're going to start to see things trend downwards. But rising tides lift all boats, right?
Well, the correct answer was public enemy number one is a musician, Flavor Flav, and it's a rockin' hot band. So you missed the whole answer to the question. It's a hot band. I know I've said this on the show too many times, but I don't buy DSOs because Wall Street doesn't buy them. I mean, I'm going to be 57 this Thursday. How old are you?
I'm 37.
So do you remember Orthodontic Centers of America doing an IPO on NYSE?
So I wouldn't have been I would have been very young when that was taking place, but I've studied a lot of this stuff historically. So yeah, I mean, they did their IPO, it all failed, fell apart, and then we kind of had our second wave of things starting to take place. And now we're really seeing the engines turn, et cetera. So time will tell where things go, but it definitely does seem to be trending upwards, and consolidation is happening at a rapid rate.
But my issue is if they're all that in a bag of chips, why can Snapchat go public and not Heartland? I mean, Orthodontic Centers of America. I mean, my gosh, what year was that? That was it ended in let's see, Orthodontic Centers of America. They're 10K. I'm looking at it right now. I mean, my gosh, come on, where's the date?
If I had to guess, I would say
2003.
Yeah.
So how can how does America and Canada need Snapchat but not dentistry? So if none of these people can go public because Wall Street, and by the way, I have 40,000 followers on LinkedIn, so I'm always getting Wall Street people asking me, they're looking at these numbers and they're confused. And I said, there's nothing confusing about it. I mean, you're just buying sales. You borrow $1 million, you buy a practice as $1 million in sales. And if you want to go to 2 million, you're going to need to borrow another $1 million. And by the time you get to $1 billion in sales, you have $1 billion in debt. And they're all like, well, I mean, you're Canadian. Would Mr. Wonderful buy that on Shark Tank? What would Mr. Wonderful say to you if you pitched him that idea on Shark Tank?
So
what would he say? He'd say, you're dead to me. Even if you're a baller, you're dead to me. So why is DSOs get so much attention when they can't get Wall Street's attention?
I think it's a good question, and one thing I want to do is just back up for a quick sec here. And I think when we talk about DSOs, I think it's very important to understand what it is. And I don't, I hear the term thrown around a lot, and I talk to people that are in the industry, but they're confusing it with certain things. And a DSO, the simplest form of it is it's a management company. You have a management entity that has centralized services that ultimately does the nitty-gritty business operations type deal. Now, on the other side, you have group practices and things of that nature that are very different. So I think it's important to understand that. Now, the other side of a DSO is that they have, you have got look at them on a big scale. If you look at the Aspens, the Heartlands, the, Pacific Dental Services, and now everyone, in between, we're starting to see that really the bottom line is this. Their model is based on a partnership with the dentist, right? And at the end of the day, that model is taking out money from one entity, putting it into another, and then figuring out a way around this whole non-dentist ownership. So I'm not sure. Maybe there's a possibility due to inherent risk and certain issues surrounding the way the companies are structured, that could very well be something that is an inhibiting factor. And I also think people don't invest in things they don't understand. There's not a lot of public awareness of how these things work. So, I don't have a great answer as to why they haven't gone public, but there's no argument that DSOs are kind of, they're being produced at a rapid rate. We're starting to see a lot of folks come in, invest in these things. A lot of private equity money has been put into these ventures. So there are smart, intelligent business folks investing based on the EBITDA multiples of these practices and companies. It just hasn't gone public, and I'm probably not the right guy to ask why, because I have not gone public. If I were to guess, I'd leave it at what I just said there.
Okay, well, I love the way you're so honest about the fact that you do have a passion disorder for dentistry. I just love it, man. If you have a passion disorder, me and you need to start the North American passion disorder dentist deal. I love your passion, but she just graduated 2 months ago. She got $285,000. What's her first? What's her first step? Not where she's going to be when she's 57. Where should she go today? How do you start?
I came out of dental school, guns blazing, taking every CE course that was available, working my butt off, really just trying to earn as much as possible, rapidly pay down debt. And then I went on to practice ownership and, made every mistake in the book. And one thing I really realized, for anyone who's about to embark on anything, it starts with just stopping for a minute before you start and really asking yourself clearly what it is that you want. So many folks come out of dental school and they really just adopted the ideas, beliefs, concepts of the people that were in that environment with them, right? I mean, we've all heard the idea you're the sum of the 5 or 10 people that are closest to you. And when you take a look at that, really you got to stop and say, okay, yeah, this is kind of what I think, this is what I want, but now why do I want it? Okay. And I think if I could work with docs on figuring that part out, it doesn't take long. We just extract the information and learn why you want what you want. It helps line people up in a direction that they actually want to go versus, meandering around and listening to all the new advice out there. So if we were to come up with some hard and fast rules, I would say, well, the number one thing you want to do is you want to get aligned with what it is that you value, what it is that you want, the lifestyle you want, the type of dentistry you want to do, the environment you want to work in. You want to reverse engineer that. So that's part one. And then as well, I think you want to be careful with who you're surrounding yourself by. Ultimately, anytime I look around at my results, they're generally the same or slightly better than the people that I'm around. But over time, what really stretched me, what really helped me grow was actually being careful about who I want to surround myself by. If I want to get fitter and healthier, I surround myself by fit, healthy people. If I want to grow my practice or business, I'm going to surround myself by people who are further along the timeline. So once you know what you want, I think the best thing you can do is say, hey, I know what I want. I know why I want it. That person, he or she has it. And then let them mentor you. Go there, listen, ask questions. That might be in the form of a mastermind. That might be in the form of just simply picking up the phone and saying, hey, I'm new. I'd love to learn from you. It may be through books they've written. It may be ultimately working with them as an associate. So I think that's really, really important, is to find somebody that looks like who you want to be. They're just further along the timeline than you. So that's where I would start, Howard. And I have a few other little pearls for new grads that I would give them.
I just want to say one thing. You say that you're a sum of the 5 people you hang around the most with. That's why I have to have a SpongeBob backpack. Thank you, 5 grandchildren who insisted that Grandpa should have a SpongeBob backpack. So I disagree with. I think you should get rid of all the people you hang around with. And if you want to be healthier and lose weight, you shouldn't be spending time with me. So you need to take your own advice. But when you start with CE, she's got to think.
Yeah.
Business or clinical?
Yeah.
How do you get your mind around that?
It's just, so before we get into that, I mean, there's a couple of things that I think I would like to add there to just get in the minds of a few different folks. And one of them is effectively the idea of saying, hey, look, everyone comes out with debt. There's tons of debt there. Once you understand where you want to go, you've got the mentors and stuff, it's really important to focus on things early, like debt reduction. So I know there's a lot of debate, and that's one of the things we talk about in the controversy and practicality chapter, is really just, people say, just hold on to that student loan debt as much as you can. There's tax advantage. Or others say pay down rapidly. And I'm always of the opinion liquidity is so important. And I think it's whether it's in your business or personal, ideally, it's good to be prepared for harder economic times. And it's always important to have debt reduction at the forefront, in my opinion. So I would recommend that people start really thinking about how they're going to chip away at this. And it's going to happen with, slow, but then there's going to be some real massive reductions you can do if you get intelligent about tax planning and these sorts of things off the bat. So just because you're not earning too much today, don't think about, oh, hey, that tax planning stuff and that sophisticated stuff is for the multimillionaires, not for me. I would say that for sure. As well, work with a sophisticated business operator if you plan on owning your own practice. Don't just jump right in. And if you do plan on jumping right in, definitely get a mentor who's done it. So the segue into the CE aspect, yeah, absolutely, you should invest in CE early and for the rest of your career. The question is, what do you invest your money into? And again, I hate to give a general answer without being specific, but it really depends on what you want. You see, I've had some docs where I'm coaching and they say to me, Justin, all I want to do is these 3 procedures. I want to do what you're doing: wisdom teeth, IV, sedation, implants, and just a little bit of general dentistry. And, I can help guide that individual a little differently. Others come out saying, I don't know what I want. And that's the majority, I would say. So if you don't know, the best thing for you to do clinically is to just start taking courses locally, start investing in things online so they're more economical for you. You don't have to fly out and take $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 programs just because your buddies are. Go ahead and be conservative and invest in CE logically, not emotionally. So the emotional way is, hey, my buddies are taking an implant course, 40 grand, and we find a way to drop 40 grand. My suggestion is stop and think about what it is that I want to accomplish. And then go after low-hanging fruit. Like, you can take a sedation program, start doing the bread and butter dentistry, and do these services all at one time and be very profitable, very productive, without having to take a bunch of CE in other areas. So it's really a customized approach. The bottom line is, if you take nothing from this, take this, get clear on what you want, why you want it, and then go after it and find the CE courses that fit that vision. Start early, invest for the rest of your career. Now, on the business side, really, if you plan on being an associate doc that, hey, look, I never want to own a practice, I just want to work for somebody, then your best thing to do is find a sophisticated business operator, practice owner, and work for them. Now, if you're the other side, which is straight up, hey, look, I want to own a practice now or in the future, then it behooves you to go out there, man, and you got to start knocking on the doors of people who are successful owners, again, further along the timeline than you. Join the masterminds, take the online programs, and the lowest hanging fruit is find a mentor, a guy like yourself.
So you're married to a dentist, right?
I am, yeah.
So a lot of people are saying that one of the strengths of a DSO is that when I was in school, a lot of people say it was a male profession. The males all wanted to own their own farm. And now that half the class is women, that's going to be the fuel for DSOs or group practices. Sure. Did you buy that or do you not buy that? Is that a sexist, untrue remark, or is there something to that?
Look, my wife Nav and I, we've been married 12 years, and we have three kids that are 5 and under, and so we're really busy with all that. And one of the things that Nav has been at a crossroads at is, hey, how much time do I spend with dentistry and all this time and effort I put into this, and balance that with the guilt that I feel of not being with the kids, etc. So, it's really one of those things where, hey, I don't know what a lot of women out there are going to feel. I don't know if they ever want to start a family. So again, it's not generic saying, hey, there's more women out in dentistry now, which means there's more opportunity for people who don't want to own businesses. I think, to a certain extent, that's a very broad generalization, and it's not taking a lot of other things into consideration. One of them being, what is the individual goal of the female graduate? It may be that 100% of them want to, open up practices. It may be 100% of them that don't want to work for DSOs. Now, I'm exaggerating, obviously, but I don't think that alone is enough information to say, hey, it's going to trend this way or that way. There's missing pieces of the puzzle, but in general, if the workforce continues to produce dentists, if the dental schools continue to produce dentists with the mindset that they don't want to own, they want to put lifestyle first, work 3-4 days a week, no evenings and things like this, and they just want to collect a paycheck and go home, then there's room for that with large corporate entities as well as dentist-owned DSOs. There's room for that with what we are doing as well, which is all dentist-owned. And we have a number of male and female docs working for us that may have similar goals and sometimes different. So again, look, I don't want to broadly categorize people, but yeah, there's a potential for that if that's their mindset.
And I'm mostly concerned about, did that baby ever get out of Nav's tummy, or is it still stuck in that belly?
Oh my God, yeah. So we have Joven, who is 6 months old now, and that's it, man. We are done. We got 3 now.
He made it out.
Yeah. So we're super happy with the kids that we have, and we're just working on making sure that we integrate our life and our work and all that together. Now, to your point with Nav, she's chosen to spend a lot of her time working alongside me. She's my partner, not only with the kids, she's my partner in the business as well, and the practice growth, and especially she's taken a really keen interest in the marketing side and just invested very heavily with some real marketing gurus out there over the last 5 years. Learned a ton, so she doesn't practice much anymore at all.
So then you had Arjun a boy, Maya a girl, and 3 was what?
Third is Joven. Yeah, Arjun is 5. Maya is 2 now, just in August, and Joven is 6 months old.
So boy, girl, boy.
Boy, girl, boy.
Do they play together good?
The age gap between the first two it was stretched enough that it's an interesting dynamic, but I think it's all going to work out. By the time they're 20, they'll all be best friends.
Well, I just love that picture, man. That is one adorable picture.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So I got to ask you, this is Dentistry Uncensored. I don't want to talk about anything everyone agrees on. I'm going to go right to the controversy. When you tell a young kid to do IV sedation, why should she learn IV sedation as opposed to just have a dentist anesthesiology come into your office, especially considering it's the most dangerous thing we do?
Okay, sure. I mean, we can consider that. I mean, it depends on how you classify dangerous, right? So really it comes down to the knowledge, information, and training that you have. And at the end of the day, I don't think if you're prepared for emergencies and these sorts of things, I don't think things are very dangerous. But let's back up a step here. So if you're going to do sedation, you don't have to do IV sedation. You see, in dentistry, we call it IV sedation. Everywhere else, they just call it sedation. So, it's not, we're anesthetizing the patient with X, Y, or Z drug. If I go to a course with a bunch of medical doctors, I've taken airway courses with anesthesiologists. One of my cousins, she's an anesthesiologist, and I say IV sedation, and she says, what do you mean? IV is just the route of administration of the drug. At the end of the day, you need to understand what the drug does. It's therapeutic window. You need to understand what the effects are, the interactions. You need to understand how to take an appropriate medical history. And when things do hit the fan, when you're working with certain drugs that can cause obstruction or apnea, airway management is important. And if we back up all the way, any good program out there is going to teach you how to do appropriate patient assessment. So I'm not saying be a cowboy and sedate everybody out there. But if we're looking at the American Society of Anesthesiologists classification and you're dealing with ASA 1 or 2 patients, the chances of you running into any issues using benzodiazepines or things like triazolam IV route midazolam, or maybe introducing some fentanyl into that equation, or hydromorphone, depending on where you practice, generally you're going to be in very good shape. Now, would I encourage anyone to just take a weekend course and go do it? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think you need adequate training. You need to get that done, but you don't have to be an anesthetist to do it, particularly if you're just dealing with single drug or dual drug sedation, and you got the narcotics out of the equation. Really, you're going to be okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice answer. Or she could just go back to grad school and become a dentist anesthesiologist, because the one thing that, the math is very clear. The average specialist makes $300,000 a year.
Sure.
And the average dentist who owns a practice makes $100,000 a year more than the person who is an employee in the office. So
that's right.
If you got $285,000 of student loans and you become any one of the specialists, if you became a dental anesthesiologist, you'll make that in 1 year.
Sure.
So you say something. Here's the most controversial thing that you said in my mind that I want to ask you. You said you believe dentist-run DSOs have the greatest potential to elevate the public's perception of dentistry and generate fulfillment for the practitioners or teams. Is that a dream? Was that a Disney movie? Did you think that while you were watching the new Lion King, which I've seen?
I thought you'd like that. So, but before I dive in, I do want to answer your question. I just want to make a statement, because I know working with dentists, sometimes we get hung up on one word or another, and I don't want to be in a position where we got a bunch of anesthesiologists out there saying, "Hey, you know what? We're highly educated, and dentists should be soliciting our services." I absolutely think there's a place for it, and I think depending on the volume of sedation you do, et cetera, and the type of practice you run, there's a place for that. You have to have certain overhead considerations to consider. But at the end of the day, go out there, get trained in sedation. It's going to serve you well. Don't be a cowboy. Learn to take appropriate medical histories and have somebody train you like a dental anesthesiologist, and refer the cases that need to be referred. But to your point about the dentist-run DSOs, now, first of all, I think, again, there's DSOs, there's DDSOs, there's dental partnership organizations, there's group practices, and all this terminology being thrown around. And what it all comes down to is the bottom line is, who's in charge of making the day-to-day clinical decisions? Who's in charge of setting up structures, systems, processes to not only run the business side, but the clinical side? And in my opinion, the most sophisticated business owners, some of the most successful, some of the most not only strategic, but very effective, have been those that have been trained in a particular industry. They did the work like a dentist, and then also developed just incredible leadership, communication skills. Entrepreneurship is at their core. And when you marry those two, I think you have the best chance of developing a DSO, or a number of these, where you got the entrepreneurial dentist who partners with the dentist that doesn't want it, and they both really understand each other. Okay. Now, if you're thinking, hey, but it's the same thing for the private equity firms. Now, what I'm finding is that these private equity firms also are involving dentists. They agree that dentists should be at the forefront now. It's not just some random CEO. Typically, there's a chief dental officer, someone there to help with that side of things. Now, does that mean that if dentists are not involved, shit's going to hit the fan, it's never going to work, and it's all doom and gloom? Not at all. I think there's tons of examples, and we won't go into specifics, but tons of examples of successful DSO models that are ethically operating there, and they don't involve dentists at their core. They're all business, but at the end of the day, they've done a good job of understanding, hey, let's train the docs on proper CE. Let's support them with communication. Let's give them the skills they need to succeed here. This comment comes from one simple fact, and that's my own biased opinion, because we have a dentist-run DSO, and I find that it works so well when you have that marriage that I talked about with the previous dental experience or current, coupled with the entrepreneurial spirit. I think it's just awesome, and if you could partner yourself with these docs, I think we have a great chance at providing great services for a number of dentists out there, and it's relatable.
By the way, I said, the average dental specialist makes $100,000 more than the average general dentist. And a general dentist who owns their own practice makes 100,000 more than an associate. So if you want to be a specialist, dental anesthesiology is one. Another one is dental veterinarian. And when I see dentists who refuse to treat hippos because they have 36 sharp teeth and are one of the world's deadliest mammals, that's just so hypocritical. So back to Nav being a woman. What percent of the graduating class do you think doesn't want to be a business owner? What percent are listening to you and saying, thank God there's guys like you because I just want to work for you. I don't want to do what you're doing.
Yeah, sure.
And do you think that ratio is different than when I got out of the class of 87?
Yeah, I can't comment about 87, but what I can tell you, so what were the stats in 87? You know, what percentage of people coming out were, I would imagine it's the vast majority wanted to hang up a shingle, open up a door and start seeing patients of their own, right?
Yeah, I graduated May 11 and I had my dental office open September 21. It wasn't even 4 months. Boom, ready to go.
Yeah. So we are operating in a market that is very different. So this idea of, if you do great work, they'll beat a path to your door, or this idea of just invest in time into CE and, get the best technology and people will be there. It really doesn't apply. I mean, 10 years ago, you could open up a practice and generally, I'm not saying it required something different. The market, the competition was very different. And because of that now, you're more vulnerable to some of the mistakes you make. If you make cash flow management errors, if you're not marketing correctly, if you're not managing this appropriately from the business side of things, I think you're more vulnerable to have a mistake that you can make early on that could haunt you for the rest of your career. Now, that being said, percentage-wise, when I talk to docs, it's about half and half that I see anecdotally. I mean, I have no study on this, and I'm not about to state a percentage because I'm unaware of that. But I would say about half and half. Half want to work in a group practice setting, or want to be involved with multiple practice ownership, or have their own practice at some point in time, and others just want to associate for the rest of their career. And I think that's probably pretty good. I heard you say something years ago, and that was that where it will probably settle is kind of 50-50. I believe your son made that comment years ago, right? That not unlike the lawyers, you're going to see half DSOs, half, cottage industry. And that's likely probably what will happen here. And that'll give people plenty of choices. So when you come out, again, I don't know what you want, but don't be sold with other people's ideas, beliefs, and stuff. Don't get hung up on the idea that you must be a practice owner. Now, people say to me, well, that's easy for you to say. You've done multiple startups, acquisitions, you own and operate a number of practices. So look, it's easy for you to say, come work for me. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is, don't do it just because you think you should. Go work for someone, figure out whether this is the right thing for you to do. And then once you're sure it's what you want, go all in, get it done.
I can't believe people, attitude is everything. You either thinking hope, growth, and abundance, or you thinking fear and scarcity. And I'll meet associates that work for some big DSO and they got all this bad attitude. Then they go open up their own practice and I start asking them, well, how did the big DSO that's managing 500 to what were their systems? And they didn't learn any systems. Like, dude, if you're working for somebody that has 2 or more offices, that's top 10% of business.
Yeah.
If they got 100 offices, that's top 1/10 of 1%. How do you not be humble enough to think that if Rick Workman can run 1,000 offices, that he just might know something more than you? Who would have thunk it? And speaking of Rick Workman, you do something very different. You do it like Rick Workman as opposed to Aspen. Aspen's branding its own name and offices.
Right.
And Heartland, when they acquire an office, that they keep it your name. You have 7 offices in Canada, and they all have their original name. Why are you not trying to brand Nike, Budweiser, Adidas, and leaving them each to have their own unique name? Where does that come from? And Kroger does it, by the way. Kroger, which is the second largest distributor in America behind Walmart in grocery, like out here in Arizona, it's Fry's. In Kansas, it's Dillon's. There's some of them are called Hinky Dinky. Why are you doing the Kroger thing and not the national branding thing?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's a great question, Howard. Do you mind for 1 minute? Before we dive into this, because it's such an important topic, that I just want to close the loop on the business ownership versus non-business ownership, and the idea of people coming out deciding what they should do, because I think it is huge, huge, huge. If you make the wrong decision, it can cause you a lot of pain and discomfort for a long time. So, I'm a big mindset guy. Not unlike yourself, you don't get to where you are without controlling this thing, right? And the bottom line is, a lot of dentists, they get in thinking like, that's what I was supposed to do. Practice ownership is the thing. And really in their heart, all they want to do is just great clinical dentistry, treat their patients very well, produce quality outcomes. And, it goes back to Napoleon Hill. Back in the day, he wrote a great book, Think and Grow Rich. And one of the things he says in there is, the mind can conceive whatever the mind, the mind can believe whatever the mind can conceive and believe. So it's the end of the day is you end up with these results that, whatever you believe in your mind is the outcome. So really, mindset's huge. Business ownership sometimes is incongruent with the value system and the lifestyle that the dentist wants. It's not for everyone. It's very, you're going to be on weekends thinking about your business when, as an associate, you can just go home. And that might not be something somebody wants. You may not want to be around a dinner table with your family, jotting down ideas about what you can do next week. And to be quite frank, I think the chaos of business is a bit unpredictable. And some people want a recipe book and cookie cutter approach, and business doesn't offer you that. So really, just get clear on what you want before we move on. Now, I know our time's limited, so I'll jump into your
time is not limited. I'm not letting you go, man. You're too good.
Okay, well, I'm here for you as long as you need. So really, then, if that's the case, it comes down to, let's get really clear. Let's not do it for the wrong reasons. And the only way to find out if it's for you or not is to talk to people, man. Get in there, go to the courses and get in the masterminds and the groups and stuff of people who own, and then really find out if this is what you want. There's no shortage of people out there who want certain things. Like, people may say, hey, Justin, I'd love to have 6 practices, and I'd love to live here or there, and I'd love to be able to just do IV sedation, wisdom teeth, and all these sorts of things. And, that's what I want. And I say, that's great. I mean, that's where we start. Why do you want it? Now let's figure out if you're going to be willing to do what it takes to get it. And I think a lot of what we're not able to do is really understand what it's going to take. And then halfway through climbing this mountain, we think, hey, man, this is not where I want to be. And you look back down and you say, heck, I've climbed this far. I'm not going back down. I'm going to get to the top. You get to the top, realize you wasted all this time. Not to sound cheesy, but it's so true. I see it time and time again. And I think it's why so many dentists are not fulfilled. They've lost their fulfillment. They've lost the spark. They're jaded or bitter about it. And they just can't tolerate it. So they turn to things like gossip, substance abuse and all kinds of numbing things, because it's painful when we've made the wrong decision and you don't feel like you can get out. So, hey, man, there's a lot of people out there that are going to help you make the decision. Not everyone's trying to sell you on their way. I'm telling you, I've met tons of dentists, not unlike yourself, Howard, who are just so giving. They just want to help people. They want to help them make the right decisions. They want to share their failures with them. So seek those people out before you decide what step you're going to take.
And speaking of substance abuse, did you hear a dentist in my town just got arrested for being a drug dealer? That's crazy. I've been going to him for years. I never knew he was a dentist.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Wow.
Get it? I've been going to him for years and I never knew he was a dentist.
You must be a dentist drug dealer, man.
So Kyle got it. Kyle busted out. He got it. Hey, but back to the name thing. Why are you and Heartland and Kroger not branding a national name?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And again, I don't think it matters. Just choose a path, stick with it, don't change course. Now, at the end of the day, people are going to argue and say, hey, if I'm branded, well, that gives me all kinds of other things. Like, I can market now as one particular name and I can market my services this way. And there's economies of scale that comes from that. And then others will say, well, but if they're individually branded, then, you don't, the reputation of one doesn't affect the other. Or they may argue that it's easier to sell individual assets, perhaps. There's all kinds of ideas and concepts of why one's better than the other. In my opinion, I don't think I feel strongly about one side. I think you should just pick a path and stick with it. And really, in our particular circumstance, because we were acquiring assets along the way that already had their own name. We weren't doing scratch starts in the beginning. We've done them now, but I wasn't doing that. It made more sense to just keep the name of the practice. The patients recognized it. Oftentimes it was the name of the city or town, and oftentimes it was a great name for, let's say, a search engine optimization or just recognition. So there's all kinds of reasons. So I think you should just do what fits your vision. And good news is most dentists don't have to think about this stuff. You're going to stop at one practice, name it what you want, and move on.
I want to go. One of the biggest problems that I see in my mind is a dentist will know that glucose spits out 23 ATP on a Krebs cycle, but he never ever knows his own practice numbers. You talk about chapter 3 of your book, you can't manage what you can't measure. Why is it 2019 and you still have the number one practice management advice, management system, Dentrix owned by Shine or Eaglesoft owned by Patterson, and none of them are hooked up to an accounting platform? I mean, these dentists are all running on Quicken, and there's not a single dentist where you can just walk in there and say, just this, okay, that patient just had a cleaning exam and bite wings.
Yeah.
Did you net $4.08 after taxes, or did you lose $6? And so we still live in this Stevie Wonder cottage profession where it's the blind leading the blind. When is somebody going to do the obvious and hook up an accounting system to Open Dental so that these people just so they can just see for the first time in their life?
Well,
and the reason I'm asking you is because I'm damn impressed, man. You're managing 7 dental offices from another country. 6 offices in another country, Canada, while you live in Florida. I mean, who the hell does that? And how do you do it? What are you managing? What are you measuring? What software do you use? What dashboards do you use? Tell me the specifics of how you get that done.
Okay, so this is a really good point. And it starts with this idea of, but I won't jump down the rabbit hole of different softwares, programs, et cetera. The bottom line is, you have a software program, learn to use it to its maximum capacity. Let it serve you. Okay, and I don't think we're letting enough of our software programs serve us. We're not, and the reason why is, 1, we're not aware of its capabilities, and 2, probably more true, is that we don't really know what we should be looking for. What are we supposed to be measuring, really? And this is a generalization. There's tons of people who know what they should be. But for example, if I were to ask the average dentist at a conference, and I meet hundreds all the time, what sort of challenges they're facing, oftentimes I hear this new patient idea. I just need more new patients, or my staff's driving me nuts. One or the other. They're the top 2. So number 1 on that list is, okay, well, if you need more new patients, usually I'll say, okay, well, how many do you get now? And some of them know, some of them don't. And then if I say, okay, of those that know, I say, okay, well, how many of those new patients, like, where do they come from? Are you tracking where they come from? Virtually, maybe 5 or 10%. And then when we dive deeper, we say, okay, well, great. Now we know, let's say you know where your patients are coming from, how many you're getting. Well, how many calls does the office receive that actually end up getting answered? So call answer rates. How many calls that get answered turn into butts in the chair or patients in your office? And of those people that show up, when you present a treatment plan to them, how many of them accept that? And then how many people come in the front door and leave out the back door, or there's attrition taking place slowly, unseemingly, without your awareness? And it's these things that matter the most. The quality of your questions determine the quality of your life and your results. And really the quality of your practice will be determined by these questions and metrics. So I've already listed 5 or 6 there that you should be doing. You should also be looking at your collections percentage. Your production is really irrelevant. It doesn't matter what you do productivity wise. There's core overhead expenses you should be looking at. The number of days to your next new patient appointment. There's so many, too much to discuss in one sitting. But the bottom line is, see, when you become acutely aware of the number, you then can come up with a strategy and get down, because now you know what the root cause of the problem is. Let's go to my dentist buddy at the conference who said they needed more new patients. Well, if I went through that exercise with them and I found out, hey, this is really just a treatment acceptance issue you have. You've got plenty of patients here. It's really your diagnosis per patient and your treatment acceptance that's the issue here. So let's work on that. And you see, every practice has something like that there, where you can get down to root cause. Once you know root cause, you can implement a strategy, and then you can move forward instead of pulling your hair out and hypothetically coming up with reasons why your practice is not growing. So I
think that was pretty rude to say pulling your hair out to some fat old bald guy. I mean, that was just low. So, but I mean, I think it's crazy. I mean, you'll go to a dental conference and, some
Yeah.
guys that, I remember when I was at the 6th week of the Pankey Institute, and this guy
Uh-huh.
is telling me everything's about TMJ and all this stuff like that. And I said to him, I said, what's the dental code for like a basic exam, cleaning, x-ray? And he didn't know. And he
Yeah.
said, what does that have to do with anything? I'm like, okay, what, I mean, they just, so I think 32 years into this, you either just like free enterprise and business or you don't. And,
Yeah.
and I think you're right. I think half these people, it's kind of like math.
Yeah.
Nobody's bad in math. They just don't like math. I mean,
Yeah.
they say, I was horrible in math. And it's like,
Mhm.
well, you're really good in farming. So you're just really into farming and you're just not
Yeah.
into geometry. I think half these people don't even want to learn math. I'm going to get to I'm going to change gears completely with
Sure.
you.
Sure.
You have 2 websites. What's the difference between highperformancepractice.com and
Mhm.
dentalbusinessmentor.com? What are my homies doing going to highperformancepractice.com as opposed to dentalbusinessmentor.com?
Sure. Yeah. So highperformancepractice.com is our coaching site. It's my coaching site. I'm the CEO of that company. We have a number of different services there for guests to check out. It's effectively designed for practice owners or those people or those folks that want to become practice owners within the next 6 months to a year. So we can give them a real fast start. And we can also, for those that are business owners, help them really identify some of the main factors that will help them take them to their next level of growth and success in their practice. So that's what high performance practice is. It's very unique and customized to the individual. And, we believe that every single dental practice owner out there, has experiences the same problems as everyone else. There's really no unique problems. There's some solutions that are unique, and there's some solutions that are better than others and that are practical, tactical, easily implementable. And that's what we're after, because complexity is the death of execution, as far as I'm concerned. So we want to make it simple. We want to not to quote your book, uncomplicate business. We want to talk about the idea of uncomplicating this, untangling it, and demystifying it. So we make it simple, and then being very strategic about what the dentist's next best move is. And for some folks, it might be increasing their treatment acceptance rate. For others, answering the phones a little better. For others, cash flow management. And there's always about a 20-25% increase that can take place in a practice over a period of time, depending on what your current problems are. So that's high performance practice. We're taking ideas and concepts that we know work, that we're using our own offices as laboratories for, or have in the past, and we know they work because we have the data to show it, and then teaching that to other folks in an effort to help them really elevate their game. Now, Dental Business Mentor was born from this idea of, hey, a buddy of mine, Dr. Paul Etchison, and I. Paul's a stud. He has a practice in New Lenox, Illinois, and just a tremendous growth curve on his practice. So what we decided to do is partner together, Paul and I, and to start with, hey, we should produce something for in-house training. I mean, some of the concerns we have and why we hold so tightly onto dental team members and get held hostage sometimes is because we don't have the appropriate internal systems to A, recruit people properly, like recruitment of A players, B, onboard them properly. And what I mean by onboard is train them for success, like not just, hey, you're going to answer the phones, get to it. I'm saying, how are you going to do this well and really succeed? So setting them up for a win, and then the ongoing training and what we call recertifications that should take place in dental offices. So we decided to do this really as it was an idea that we thought, well, let's do this for ourselves. And it grew into, no, everyone needs this. So we thought we could give people something they could sit at home and watch in their underwear or watch with their team fully clothed in their office, and they don't have to leave anywhere. It cuts down on travel costs, cuts down on the idea of having to close down the office, and you can get a bunch of short, potent, practical, tactical information on business development for you to fill that void between dental school and private practice ownership.
And you think about half people want this practice ownership.
Yes.
They need a business mentor.
Mhm.
So where what is the crux of this program? So if they say I want you to walk me through this, I invested 8 years of my life and have $284,000 in debt, and I want to be a baller, just like Justin Bhullar, the dental baller. How much is the program, and what exactly are you going to deliver for them?
Okay, well, these are really two separate things. When we talk about high performance practice, you can visit the site. I encourage everyone to take a look at the site and have a look. There's 3 tiers of the program. There's a lot of information on each. Learn about us. See, our program's not for everyone. And in fact, there is an application process to this. We don't take everyone simply because we want to be able to go after and select the folks that are best aligned with us. And that allows us to select candidates that we know that we can deliver immediate value to, and they have the goal of getting to the next level. So the tiers are different based on where you are. Visit highperformancepractice.com. It's got all the information you need. You can also set up a free call with me for 30 minutes if you like. Take advantage of that. And there's some other resources on the site that I think would be valuable, free gifts and things where we can offer you some information. Now, the dental business mentor side, same thing. Visit the site, check it out. This is for somebody who wants business training, ideas, strategies, systems, processes that we have used in our own practices, things we use to train our own teams, and you want to learn about them, watch them at your own pace, rewind, rewatch, and be able to do this to embed the concepts and the fundamentals of business and practice ownership deep inside, so you can start executing on this stuff and get the same results we have in our practice in our life.
And also, there's talk about I want you to go on and make a post on this on Dental Town. Make a post somewhere so I can post this deal. But your free gifts, you can't. By the way, on Dental Town, if you make a post about your website and your free gifts and all that kind of stuff, you only get one thread, and it's called the continuing education thread. A lot of people don't understand this. On Dental Town, I can have one thread that I'm a dentist and promoting my lecture and all that kind of stuff. Now, if every time you go on other threads, you start posting the answer is to go to my website and sign up for this, then it's called spamming. But if they sign up for your free 30-minute call with you, and by the way, this isn't a commercial. He didn't give me any money. I asked for all 3 of his children to mix with my 5 grandchildren. He said no. But the 5 gifts are goal setting tool and productivity planner, KPI blueprint practice report card, morning huddle checklist, marketing calendar, step-by-step patient reactivation protocol. What is your goal setting tool and productivity planner?
Well, a couple of things. Goal setting tools designed. It's stuff that I had learned from all kinds of leadership gurus and coaches and things over the years, and really just condensed it, made it unique for me, and put on paper what worked for me. So it's that thought crystallized on paper, and it's a tool that's designed to help people get really clear about what they want, and then help them take big tasks and divide them up into little chunks so they don't seem so big, and really help you get there a little bit faster. So it's an effective tool, or at least has been for me, to get clear, to devour an elephant in bite-sized pieces and make a move, versus, this time next year being in the exact same position you're in.
And I've noticed that with successful people. Successful people wake up in the morning and say, what is my biggest problem on the plate? Okay, it's an elephant. Let's start there. And then unsuccessful people, they see that elephant, and the next thing they know, they start, cleaning out their refrigerator. They go to work and start organizing their desk. And it's like, you got to start from the most weighted problem. And then as you get, and when you're young and out of school, I mean, you come out of school and you want to accomplish like 5 things in 5 minutes. And when you're my age, when you're 32 years old, I mean, by time, I spend between Thanksgiving and Christmas wrapping up the year, like how was our year, and then planning. And I always drop it about MLK Day. It's after the holidays. It's time to go back to work, and these are the goals for the year. And at my age, it's like, this year, if we can do these 3 things, what an awesome year. And then you're listening to some kid who's 25 and he's going to try to do 48 things by Friday. And it's like, so you need to work from most weighted to least weighted. And that's why goal setting is so important. You talk about your KPI blueprint. My homies don't know what KPI. It's key performance indicators. What is that KPI blueprint practice report card? And will you post it on Dental Town?
Yeah, sure. I can absolutely do that. Now, I mean, going back to what you had said, Howard, about this idea of visiting the site, free gifts, all this. I mean, look, we are there to deliver valuable information to you. If at any point anyone does not want this information, that's absolutely an opt-out. You know, people are so sick and tired of this idea of getting spammed and all that. I can relate to that, trust me. So in no way, shape, or form do we want people to feel that way. Just value generation and delivery is what's most important here. Any way we can help and figure out a mutually beneficial way to work together is always the goal. Now, going back to the key performance indicator, it's exactly what we talked about. You know, just certain things that you can measure so that you can go ahead and begin analyzing your practice from a very objective versus subjective or emotional standpoint. We want to be able to get the data, get the information, and there's a number of companies out there that you can utilize to even pull the information. But I think it starts with this idea of, hey, now I know what I need to measure, and then it's really up to you whether or not you measure it or not. I find that a lot of, as dentists, we're left brain analytical, some of us, and we have this tendency to really love more information. You know, I have an addiction to information myself, so it's part of the passion disorder. It's a symptom of it, you know. And one thing though is, you know, really more information is great, but it's the execution that matters the most. And you're not going to make any progress unless you implement and execute. Now, when you talk to these guys who extract the data from the dentist software and say, here are the problems, you know, only a fraction of the dentists actually go and take that data and then do something about it. So it's great to have the information and it's great to have more, but at the end of the day, we must make an effort to go do stuff. Now, to your point, everyone wants everything tomorrow or yesterday, right? So I want it now, I want it now. And look, I'm the same. I'm not sitting here preaching to anybody. I'm a work in progress forever, very much so. I operate from a position of learn, learn, learn. I'm trying to take notes everywhere, whether you're further behind the timeline or ahead, I'm listening, I'm trying to figure it out. You know, here we're in a platform where, you know, I'm sitting here with you, Howard, talking, answering your questions and delivering value. And I think some audience members can make the mistake that, hey, this guy's figured everything out. And it's really not the truth. You know, we know what we know, but we don't know what we don't know. And we're in constant pursuit of that. It's why we're constantly evolving and adopting new systems and processes and growing and developing and then sharing this information with others. So in any case, take that information and see if it's helpful to you. If it's not, I'm very open. Always hit me up, send an email and say, hey, Justin, this sucked. I would have loved to see this. And man, oh man, am I open to delivering materials that are you know, powerful and useful. So
nice. So here's the other problem. Here's the 4,000-pound elephant in the room. The skill set to get into dental school means that in college you had to sit in the library and get A's in math, physics, chemistry, and biology. Mm-hmm. Now you become a dentist, and the skill set that's going to win the day is relationships, people person. You got to be a leader, not a boss. You got to build a dream team. And if you don't like that, and this is why the dentists always say, well, I hate selling dentistry. No, you actually just hate people because you're a mathematician, engineer, physicist. And if you can't get this person motivated to part with their, I mean, a fool and their money owe his parts. And I figure that only 3% of dentists who retire have the money to retire, and they have 8 years of college. So obviously 97% of Americans can part with their money if someone motivates them. How do you take this nuclear physicist Krebs cycle person who last night dreamed about angular momentum and teach them to present dentistry and have a morning huddle and be a leader and learn to love selling dentistry because they know that's what's best for the patient, to part with their money to fix their teeth, not to upgrade their Louis Vuitton purse?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's a great question, Howard. And look, I think dentistry has a number of, like we talked about, left brain analytical engineer type, 1 + 1 = 2, and it must be that or else. And, you know, as well as folks that are more introverted, and, you know, they might be great with their patients in the sense that they're there to care for them and they genuinely really do care. And, you know, the majority of them anyway. And these folks want to do their best work. But unfortunately, where things start to fall apart is it's great to have the intention to do great work. work. But unfortunately, you can't do that if you are a practice owner that can't get people through the door to do great work, or when they are there, we can't connect with them or communicate them in a way that will motivate them to do the same treatment that we would. And, it doesn't take long before, someone says, you have to sell dentistry. And, look, this is the way I look at sales. Sales is not something you do to somebody. It's something you do for somebody. And if you have a product or a service that's going to enrich the life of the recipient, man, go out there and talk about it. So if you're thinking, hey, man, I don't know, I wouldn't want to do this work, or I wouldn't want this for myself, you have no chance of the patient doing the work. You have to believe in yourself, believe in the service that you're offering, and it starts with you. So I always ask every dentist, why are we shy and afraid to educate the patients on or find ways to talk to them about these procedures? One is always the idea of fear of rejection. They don't want to be the guy who says, hey, doc, you digging for gold in there? Am I paying for your next Mercedes Benz or something like that? And unfortunately, the introverts especially start to become more introverted. This fear of rejection. Hey, I put myself out there. I offered it. They don't care. They don't have the money. They don't want it. And these paradigms and ideas and concepts start floating through our mind to the point where we just start to retract further into our shell. And what I tell everyone is, look, at the beginning, it's really important to do a couple of things. One, again, I'll keep saying this over and over, decide what you want, why you want it, then align yourself with somebody who's already done it so they can show you what it's going to take. Now that you know that, you can decide whether you want to be the associate doc or the owner doc. Now, even further, if you're the owner doc, you're going to have to invest in leadership and business development training and all these things. Regardless if you want to be an owner or not, you must, as a dentist, you must invest in communication training. You have to learn to communicate. If you don't, you're going to end up, the dentists that I see have the greatest problems with their team, and those that are producing the least in their offices, the so-called labeled conservative dentist, is the one who's not presenting the treatment, who's not communicating appropriately. It's the dentist who is not communicating properly with the team or very clearly articulating what their expectations are. They make assumptions that they think everyone should be aware of, and so on and so forth, and things fall apart. So at the core of all of this is effective communication, which will allow you to build trust with other people, other human beings. And trust is where it all starts. When you have that, then you can grow and progress together and come together to make intelligent decisions.
Nice. And do you think, back to the emotional stuff?
Yeah.
Some people think that people are a fear of success, that there's a fear of success. Other people think it's a fear of failure. Is it fear of failure? Is it fear of success? Why is there such an emotional attachment to failure?
Yeah.
And is it fear of success or is it fear of failure? But why all the emotional baggage about failure? Which is why I think they're afraid to open up their own office.
Well, it's the horse cart or chicken and the egg idea here. I mean, who knows what's first? But at the end of the day, I believe that at the core of any inaction in our life, whether it be getting in the best shape of our life, or whether it be the idea of growing a business or being the best husband, father, brother, sister, whatever it is, whatever your goal is, the best philanthropist, it all starts with this idea of this is what I want, why I want it, and being sure of that. And then going after it, because all of us, no matter how sure we are we want it or not, you're going to end up meeting people who are getting in your way, or folks, or speed bumps or roadblocks. And you talked about in my bio, these bridge collapses that occur. So your deep, meaningful reason why is important. It's unique to you. So definitely have that. But to answer your question specifically, I think it's fear and scarcity and these sorts of things. These ideas that, hey, if I fail, then people will judge me. And, to date, dentists, they don't have a lot of, myself, man, trust me, I'm not your typical, I have failed many times, but most docs up until the point where they've graduated dental school really have been quite good students. They've done well. They're not used to this idea of, getting an F. And when you get an F, oftentimes it shows up or manifests in a way that you maybe don't recognize until it's too late. And you start to have these bad habits in that form, and, poor business management, poor leadership, and it kind of spirals. So the first step to do is to say, hey, again, this is what I want. get to know yourself. You talk about this in your book as well, as do I, Howard. Know your strengths and weaknesses. I mean, knowing yourself, better self-awareness, better choices, better results. And it comes down to knowing yourself so I understand completely, what direction you're headed in. Now, when you're clear on all that, again, going back to your point, is once you're clear on all that, it's important to recognize nothing that you do is going to be failure free. It's not going to be in the absence of failure. And it's so important just to be vulnerable and humble and recognize that and hang around people who are telling you the truth about what it really takes. That's honestly one of my biggest missions, is just be straight up transparent about what it takes to get there so people can understand and hear my failures, whether they be clinical or otherwise, the struggles you may be working on in your life. You're balancing children, marriage, businesses, all kinds of things. I mean, dude, trust me, there are things that don't work out on a day-to-day basis. And especially being a business owner, you must be able to put out fires and deal with problems. And if you're not interested in that, then really it's going to be tough. It's going to be a challenge if you expect a straight line or problem-free journey. So going back to what you said, I think people are scared. I think they're fearful. I think it's hard to step out of your comfort zone. I think being outside of it makes you feel stretched like a rubber band, sometimes about to burst. So what do? You release the tension and come back to what's normal. And I think these things happen all the time. But you take a look at some of the world's, most influential personal development dudes. Take Tony Robbins, for example. I mean, it's where all the magic happens, is outside of your comfort zone. Being outside of your comfort zone is where the growth happens, and understanding and recognizing that failure is going to take place. But if you can reframe it as an opportunity to be like, man, I learned something from that and I'm moving on quick. Don't be so worried. Don't be so scared. Find people who are going to help you, to give you the emotional and psychological support to get through it. Don't quit. You can do it, provided it's what you really want.
And by the way, Tony Robbins, he was on this show, episode 301.
Yeah.
And my gosh, leave it to my bad Irish luck. It's the only one where the video doesn't come through. So it's perfect on iTunes, but on YouTube, you just have to, the video froze. I want to ask you the $1 million question, though.
Sure.
We talked about, when I meet, every time I go to dinner or lunch or whatever with some dentist 5 years out of school, they've had 5 different associate jobs. And whenever you look at DSOs, they live in an aquarium, so everybody knows they have massive dentist turnover. In fact, the average associate only works a year, but that's in private practice and DSOs. It doesn't matter. Trying to get a dentist to work for you. So how do you find a dentist associate and reduce the turnover? And what do you consider an A? If they get out of school, do you hire new graduates out of school? Do you want them to have 5 years experience? What's your secret sauce for how to make money owning dental offices, having dentists be employees working for you? It's just, it's the hardest thing in all of dentistry. And by the way, if you're looking for a job, go to dentaltown.com classified ads. It's the most overlooked thing on Dentaltown. There's 5,000 free classified ads. They're all updated. They only last 120 days. And it's one of the hottest sections on Dentaltown to find a job or to buy a CAD cam half off, or hell, you can buy anything on those classifieds for half off if you're into the used market. But how do you find these dentists that want to be associates for you? How do you reduce the staff turnover? Talk about that.
Yeah. Well, absolutely, you're right. It's one of the issues. I mean, whether it be dentists or team members, for that matter, at the end of the day, not having the A players, or however you want to define that, can be a tremendous challenge, a tremendous stress. I mean, I've heard you talk about this in the past before as well. One of the greatest challenges with turnover is not just the fact that you got to retrain and onboard and then redo people's work and all these sorts of things. The other challenge is that actually the patient's perception of what quality work is oftentimes retention of team members and doctors. This consistency that they have, demonstrates to them that this is a quality operation. So it's definitely one of the things that's at the forefront for us, is making sure that the people involved are there. We want to be one of the best employers. We want to genuinely and sincerely appreciate everyone on our team. We want to train them for success and support them. We're not perfect at all, but even if we can nail this 80% of the time, we're further ahead. And that's what we're really looking for. I'm not looking for perfection. We're just looking for better results. Now, with respect to, it starts with the recruitment idea. So what do you want out of an associate? I think far too many people just want to fill a hole, or maybe have somebody come on to do work they don't want to do. Maybe they don't have the appropriate systems. It's a little chaotic, but they're in an environment where the dentist to patient population ratio is favorable, and they decide that they want to bring someone on. Maybe they want to slow down and have someone fill that downtime. Whatever the reason is, first of all, understand why is it that you need an associate? That's what I always ask everyone, why do you want one? Why do you need one? What's your plan here? And then you got to communicate that plan very, very clearly with the candidate. Because see, if their expectations are different than yours, that relationship's going to fall apart, right? No different than a marriage or a partnership. That's going to fall apart. You see, transparency and clarity of what you expect is so important, because it'll weed out the people that aren't interested at all. And then really sharing your mission, your vision, your value system. And for those of you thinking, what the heck is that, rainbows, unicorns, fluff stuff, maybe we'll save that for another time, but it's so important. It's really who you are as a office and where you're headed and what you stand for and the types of experiences you want to create for people, And so what I tell folks is start with that, share that with them, tell them who you are, scare away the people that never want anything to do with that, and then go a little deeper with the applicant population that does want that stuff, who has aligned values. So the next step for me is making sure that you have set them up for success. So for example, for our dentists, one of the things we have is we have a WhatsApp group where docs are continually posting stuff where all our dentists are helping each other. Okay, no judgment, nothing like that. Post whatever you want, your errors, your questions, no matter how silly, post them. Number two, we have an onboarding process to start off with. We pair the dentist with a mentor who's ahead of the timeline than them. And we set goals based on their current, productivity levels, their current knowledge. We recommend CE courses they should take. We really give them that and set them up for a win. And then we also do bi-monthly video conferences with all of our dentists, and we have them on board where we put up cases. Someone comes back from a CE course and teaches them. We'll actually sit there and look at, no difference than, practicing free throws or putting as a professional, athlete. We're sitting there looking at x-rays, cases, etc., saying, hey, what do you see here? What would you diagnose treatment plan? Really just calibrating all that, dialing all that in. And, if whoever you may be, if you're a dentist practicing a number of years or, just fresh out of the graduate school, you're still going to want mentorship and support, and you're still going to want people there in your corner to help you when things don't work out. So if you can get really good at actually creating a supportive environment, I think your retention will go through the roof. So set expectations, be clear about those, and then support people to retain them. And then the third most obvious thing would be is I'm not a huge fan of the associate-driven model long-term. I'm not saying it doesn't work. It's just not for me. I prefer to have partnerships, junior-level partnerships, senior-level partnerships, where we can then take someone who has some skin in the game. Now, we only do that once we know for sure that somebody who we're partnering with has the same values. We've worked with them for a bit. We understand we're headed in the same direction, and we have complementary skill sets, you see. See, where a lot of docs fail dentists is they want them to work for them, but they're not willing to say, hey, I'll wear this hat, you wear this hat, and together we will, rise. So these are some of the things that can be taken into consideration. And if you do nothing but really be clear and transparent, I think you're going to be off to a better start.
Well, that's what Rick Kirshner says. Rick Kirshner, Comfort Dental, he has like 300 of them, but they're all partners. And he just says that. He says, you're not going to make money in dentistry if someone doesn't have skin in the game. And I see it. I mean, when you go to a dental lecture, all the dentist owners sitting in the front row and they're taking notes, and then the associate sitting next to him's on Facebook the whole time. That's why, what I see on the dental associates is they're just referring. I mean, someone has a molar toothache. Oh, endodontist. Oh, you need that tooth pulled? Oral surgeon. Oh, the kid's crying. Pediatric dentist. Because they don't have $1 million of practice debt. And when you have $1 million in practice debt, you're like, I'm going to take out that wisdom tooth. I'm going to do a molar root canal. So so I still think, this is what I'm saying. You alluded to what Greg said earlier, that, with lawyers, half of them want to be in a firm and half want to be solo. And Greg thinks that's where the market's going. And when you go to these law firms, if you bring new clients and work real hard and burn the midnight oil, that they make you partner. And so I think MTM's Manji said on this show that he thinks the final DSO model hasn't even been invented yet.
Totally agree.
But if he had to invent it, he said he would look to Price Waterhouse or Boston Consulting or some international law firm with offices in Washington, D.C., Tokyo, and London. He certainly wouldn't be looking at anything available today. I mean, we're still in the stone age of this thing, but man, when I see a dentist with skin in the game, they are saying, you know what, I really don't want to do a pulpotomy on a screaming 3-year-old, but we're going to get her done. And then humans, I think the number one skill of a human that separates them, well, I think the only thing that separates humans from the other animals, like people always say, well, do you think, well, dogs, they think, well, I think dogs and all the other animals, I think they all react, but I think true thinking is when you can disconnect yourself from reality and see yourself from 30,000 feet and invent stories like Disney and all these kind of things like that. And I think what separated Homo erectus from all the other apes was, I think they learned how to disconnect from reality and think. And the first thinking was storytelling. So humans are excellent storytellers. So they always think, well, it'd be better for the patient if an endodontist did it. Well, it'd be better for an oral surgeon. It's like, well, who was the endodontist's first molar root canal? I mean, was he born with 50 root canals under his belt? I mean, and this 2-year-old, does this mother, she had to leave work, come here, bring you a baby, and all you're going to write is a piece of paper that she has to make another appointment somewhere else on another day? Maybe you're just a storyteller, and all you do is tell stories about why you don't want to do anything difficult in your life. And in fact, the weirdest thing is when they say, well, I don't like blood. Well, why did you become a doctor? Shouldn't you have become a programmer or an engineer? I mean, if not liking blood is a foundation thought, how did you end up a dentist surgeon working in an operatory your whole life? So people are crazy. I'm convinced at 57 years of age that I am actually the only normal person on earth today. And it's tough when you're the only normal person. I mean, I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours and hours. I'm trying to think. And then the other thing they do with them, what I love about successful people like you is that we're going to end on this. We're 5 minutes over time, but you're totally fine working in a company being the dumbest guy in the room. I mean, I want to hire people that make me look like a cretin monkey who lost his tail. And so many CEOs, if they see a rising star, they just crush them or get rid of them. I mean, I would love to go to a meeting. Everybody says, well, let's not ask Howard. He knows the least about any of this stuff. Why do you think, and then young dentists, like when I got out of school, my God, when I hired hygienists, talk about illegal. Every young hygienist that walked in, I'm smiling, listening to her and all that, but I knew I was going to hire the oldest one. I mean, I graduated, May 21. This thing's going to open in 4 months. And when the oldest lady walked in, I think she was 55, I said, look, I don't know what I'm doing. She goes, oh, honey, I've done this for 30 years. You just do what I say and you'll be fine. And I'm like, that's what I want. But they don't have the humility to say, and in fact, I'll take it one step further to tell you how dumb I was. I would look at the bite wings before I walked in the room and say, oh, well, they don't have any cavities. And then Sherry would circle this one and this one. I mean, she was a hygienist for 30 years. She could read x-rays. She could write. She did everything better than me. So why are you cool with being the dumbest guy in the room and dentists, physicians, politicians, lawyers, they can't do that?
I think, first of all, let's take one step back real quick here. And this idea of humans being great storytellers, that's universally true, man. I mean, you put it so well, articulated that so well, could not be more true. And really, the one thing we do have in our control is the story, is the narrative. In fact, we're creating it as we go along. So if you're going to choose to tell yourself stuff that doesn't serve you, why not switch it up? Choose to tell yourself the opposite, because what you're telling yourself now is not consistent with the results you want to produce in your life. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. I just want to, I think you do have control over that. You can't control the weather, but you can control that. You can't control what your competitor does, but you can control that. And definitely grasp hold of that and grab the bull by the horns, because your narrative, man, I tell you, it's really going to predict the results you have in your life in many areas. So going back to your question, remind me specifically what you asked me. I went off on a tangent there.
You're fine with being the dumbest guy in the room.
So Look,
So you lost your ego. How did you lose your ego and become a humble baller?
It's not gone. I'm not saying the ego's gone completely. You have to always have checks and balances. Everyone has it. It'll always be there. Everyone wants significance, recognition, validation, and all these sorts of things. Any human telling you they don't is really not being honest. And the reality is we all want that. But what I've learned to do is understand what my strengths and weaknesses are. It's so clear to me what they are. It's not ambiguous. I just know. And, I work on my weaknesses, but generally, I try to surround myself by people who supplement those. And this is where the best partnerships, whether they be marriages or partnerships in work, and the best teams form when there's not all this clustered skill set where everyone's competing for that small space. Now, with respect to being the dumbest guy in the room, it's one of the chapters in my book. The reason I like that is because that level of learn-it-all mentality versus know-it-all mentality needs to change in dentistry. You see, we come out 8 years, top 5% with respect to education in the world. And I know all this information. And, over time we get humbled clinically, but society still perceives us as these smart, they know it, all kind of folks. And I think to a certain extent that can get to people's head. It certainly did mine, and to a certain extent in the beginning, but you get humbled real quick. It didn't take me more than a couple of months to get humbled clinically and understand that, hey man, there's people out there who have information that I need to become them. Let me now just go learn. And I've maintained that. It's a white belt mentality. I'm never going to lose it. I have to battle with it sometimes, and turn it down a notch because I might be, look, bottom line is this. If you're talking, you ain't learning anything. Okay. You're just reaffirming the beliefs you already have. If you're talking, you're learning nothing. So when you listen, guess what happens? You learn a thing or two. So being the dumbest guy in the room is valuable because I can just shut up and listen and take notes and then go and implement and then get the same results they have. I love it. I think it's fantastic.
All right. Well, I love it. And I love you. And I only want to correct one thing you said wrong on the whole show. You said you didn't like spam. If you hate spam, please send it to me. I love canned meat. I grew up on spam. My God, there's nothing better than a spam sandwich with cheese and mayo. Hey, thanks so much for coming on my show. We should start a thread on Dental Town and give me a place to post this podcast. And sure. I just, my whole mission is to get more homies exposed to people that can set them on the right path. And that would definitely be you. Good luck with those 3 kids. That's your number 1 mission in life. Absolutely. And have a rockin' hot day.
Thank you so much, Howard. I appreciate it. You're the man. I appreciate your time. Always grateful for it.
All right. And when you grow up, you too can be a dental baller.
There we go.
All right, buddy.
Take care.